Barghani, Islam, Salam, Etepu, Rahu Bats, Gino Lako Ninani, Chief Noble Bandele. Yo, peace to my nigga 8.0, my boy, JB in the building. If you still in the building, I lost probably a few people, man. I'm about to have King of Bay come back on the air and try this again. I don't know, like sometimes you know how the computer is. I had to shut it down so it could start running again. And I think that's what I need to do sometime. Hey, I got it back, man. I don't know, it was just running slow. I got it back, man. You can come back in. All right. So before we get into anything else, look, subscribe to the channel, like this video, even though we've been screwing up for the first 4 or 5 minutes. But we about to have a power pack show tonight. We're gonna be dealing with the legal stuff, man. Like a lot of Moors out here, a lot of Moors are trying to do certain things, right? And we've talked about this before, but it's certain things that Moors are trying to do. Some of them are productive. Some of them are not as productive. But what we really want to do tonight is really like try to pinpoint some of the problems, some of the jurisdictional problems that Moors and people who are studying like sovereignty or whatnot, what problems they're having, the issues that they're having with trying to, perform these particular legal remedies, right? Like, come on. A lot of Moors have been going to jail. A lot of Moors have been, doing stuff like we say, they be squatting on land. Their heart is in the right place as far as the history, the understanding from that point. But when it comes to the application, we have a problem. Even with the using the treaty and whatnot, we got a problem. So, one of the things that we need to do is that we have to try to come up with a better understanding of the law, right? So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have King El Bay come back in. I think he's coming back in. We're gonna get this party started, right? See, now it's moving. Okay, see, we good now. Please, God, please. Yo, like I said, y'all, sorry about that. I hate that that happened. I hope y'all. I hope the people that was watching, I hope they come back, man, because we had a few people coming in too, man. But basically, brother, we got King Obey in the building once again. Appreciate you. Like I said, y'all, we got a show tonight. We're gonna have a good show because we're gonna get into some of this legal stuff, man. This what we call legal, but really the lawful information that we need to have in order to move a lot better in this system. So, without further ado, man, peace and love, man. You go ahead. I'm gonna get it started, man. I'm gonna put it up on the board. One of the things that we have a problem with, it says, what are some of the problems facing the Moors today? And I'm gonna let you lead off with that, brother.
Okay. One of the first things that Moors we face is the problem is that we think that nationality is the end all be all. That's all we got to declare our nationality, and that's it. You make your declaration, you put notices in, and then you think you could just do what you want to do. You could just start running around in the system, causing havoc, not paying taxes, and you running in this jurisdiction, and you don't even understand the jurisdictional issues. You don't even understand the construction of the institution that you're in. So you don't, when you declare your nationality, then you think, okay, I don't have to abide by any of these rules because I got my nationality, and that make me exempt to everything that they're doing. But most of us don't understand what we're doing. So by us thinking that nationality is the only thing, That's the only thing that we latch on to. And we don't understand because we haven't read and understand the institution that we're dealing with within itself as it relates to not just the Constitution, the codes of federal regulations, United States codes, and all the other institutions that's involved and that's in play with the United States. We think that that's all we got to do is declare our nationality. And the reality is, the nationality is just one of the components that we need to do as it relates to our freedom. I
Okay,
think
okay,
we don't know how to read this information so that we can better understand how to either be in it or come out of it.
okay. So, like you saying like as a Moor, we're like nationality is the order of the day, right? And
Right.
like you said, I mean, we understand the word nationality, but the way it's set up, it's kind of still pseudo because it doesn't have all the components to it. So, okay, so I know this is something that may have been off track, but what is one of the components that you feel like um, is one of the components that we're missing?
Um, we are not being industrialists, so we don't. So when you look at the treaty and understand the treaty, we have a right to commerce. The problem is that we're in somebody else's house. We're still in somebody else's house, and we think like, oh, they're talking about the land. No, they're not talking about the land. You're not looking. You don't understand the institution. So we don't have our own institutions to help regulate and communicate with the United States. We supposed to have our own instrumentality or our own institutions that can make claim and make reference and say now they're within their prospective jurisdiction and we all have a treaty to exercise our right to commerce. So our rights are safeguarded through this treaty component. So I just think that, I mean, the United States was very clever in understanding their operations, how to separate you from your Moorish treaty and which is your right of inheritance, and they knew certain things to play on, and that's how they did it. And a lot of people don't haven't did enough in-depth research as it relates to reading and understanding this institution that was constructed to understanding the construction of law that's um, that's right before us.
Okay, now, okay, brother. Now, like I told you, man, like we I think we get that. Okay, we don't have allegedly we don't have the institutions we need, but we talked about. Now, I got on the board. It says Moors, despite nationality, are still creating minimal contact with the state and federal government. I think that's one of the issues that Moors face when anytime they're trying to do anything. Like we said, despite having nationality. So can you go kind of into that?
Okay, so as it relates to minimum contact, jurisdictional issues is that a lot of Moors, right? They declare their nationality, but then they go right back into the jurisdiction. They'll go get an EIN number. They'll start messing with the social. They'll start messing with the birth certificate, and they don't understand like doctrines. The United States got a bunch of doctrines. One of them is called the instrumentality doctrine. So you are in possession of these instruments, and but then you want to say, "Hey, United States created all of these instruments, and you thinking it's just paper?" And they like, "No, these instruments allow you to move and flow throughout the jurisdiction." And you're holding a particular instrument in which they're presuming jurisdiction because you don't understand the instrument that you're holding. You just say, "Oh, that's a birth certificate." You don't really understand the law associated with that property. That's why I say you got to understand property law. You got to
Okay,
understand.
so now you said birth certificate. So the Moors, they go in, they trying to claim their birth certificate. Like they're trying to claim, they're going in there trying to own the birth certificate. Like what I'm talking about, right?
Right. So,
Okay,
uh,
so what are
so,
they doing wrong with that, bro?
so they don't understand the Constitution. So if you go to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, it tells you how the straw man was born. It tells you in the Constitution, right? And if you want to pull that up, we can take a second and pull that up, and I can show people how to identify elements, right, in which is being performed to understand and be able to precisely make a determination on how jurisdiction is being stimulated because they're using multiple jurisdictional issues to they spin the web in which you're caught in. And nationality is not just going to save because there are multiple jurisdictional issues at hand that you need to deal with. So, like I said, you're holding on to the birth certificate and you're trying to make claim that that's your birth certificate. I see it, mamas. We'll take care of that.
Okay, so you're saying okay, so okay, go ahead.
So, so this is one of so some of the stuff that I'm trying to break down. I know we talked about it earlier, and I need to identify some of the things that's going on so that we can understand the components, so we can understand the particularities that's in front of us and how to sever the jurisdiction. So the state create the birth certificate for you to be in. Let me see if I can pull up the Constitution real quick to just give you uh, a glimpse of what's going on. So under Article 1, Section 9, let me share my screen. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to show the folks how stuff can really be performed.
Hey, hey, I got this brother in the chat, right? And I ain't gonna lie, man. Dude, funny. He hilarious, man. I just gotta, I just gotta put this in here, man. But see, this is what the Moors be talking like. Like, just look at this. Look at this. What this brother got doing.
What do you say?
Look what he said in here, man.
Russ
He got
and
it here. Okay, I'm gonna share your screen. Hold on. He said I did a treaty with Russia, and that's why they're getting the fight set up of 750 trillion there as the East, and just did 675 trillion in the West last week. Hey man, hey, hey, he's hilarious, man. But this, like, that be kind of like the stuff, man. That cats be on, man. Like they be talking crazy, man. I just wanted to, I just had to show you that, man. Hey, bro, you ain't getting really. I mean, all the stuff you talking about is out there.
okay. Can you
I don't
see?
know, but
Can,
anyway,
can you see?
let me
Can
see.
y'all see the screen?
I got you on the screen.
Okay, you see, this is section 9 of Article 1, right? And it says that migration or importation of such person as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. For each person. So this is the birth of the straw man. So they imported you into the jurisdiction, and then they laid a tax and or duty on you as it relates to be imposed on such importation. And it says not exceeding $10 for each person. So they brought you into the jurisdiction, imported you, and gave you under the 14th Amendment, in which Congress allowed states to create a person. So now, one of the problems is that we don't know how to look at instruments and determine it. And then another problem is, why would we come into a jurisdiction? The only people that can really interpret the legalese is who? A judicial officer. Article 3.
Who who's a judicial officer? Hold on. So we're not talking about people in the bar. What how do people from the bar relate to this?
Those are officers of the court. So, but if you know judges, right, they the ones who interpret the law and set the standard of law as it relates to common law, as it relates to case law. So they the ones. The bar association is the legal system for the United States, and all of them are officers of the court, and they the only ones that have a right to interpret this language, or this what they call script, right? They only have the power, just like a doctor has a right to write a medical prescription. Only lawyers have the right to make and interpret law. So,
Okay.
if you understand, if you go down, if you look at what each branch of government do, the legislative establishes the law. The executive branch does what? Enforce the law, and the judicial branch does what? Interpret the law. And they all have their own prospective jurisdictions. So most of us we don't really understand the Constitution in itself, that instrument within itself, and all the instruments that are created after that, including the contracts. When you read the Supreme Court case law, they tell you that provisions of state, or where they say um, statutes are nothing but clauses and provisions of contracts. They call them constitutional. They call the Constitution and statutes federal. These are federal statutes, because that what kind of corporation is it? It's a federal corporation. They tell you
Right.
this.
The United States is a federal corporation.
It's a federal corporation that deals in federalism, and this is their construction. Their constitution is a federal. It's a federal construct of their legal system, in which spills over into the statutes. Statutes are extensions of the Constitution as it relates to contractual matters. So most of us don't even understand the construction of the entity that we're looking at, and do not understand how to enter or come out of the matrix in itself. We don't know how to um, act in the matrix or do not know how to come out of the matrix, and that's one of the biggest problems that I see, because we don't know how. And I see you got it posted, right, and I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. That I see that you said you have to safeguard your rights. So we don't know how to contract. So we don't understand the institution itself. So you don't know how to play by the rules, and then you don't know how to contract.
Okay,
So
so you say we don't know how to contract.
exactly.
I know that that's one of the. I think learning how to contract is the most important learning tool. Okay, and so explain to us the like the purpose of contracting.
Okay, contracting is a form of negotiation, right? You negotiate. You willing to give up something, and that person is willing to give up something. So y'all both are being considerate of something. It's an art form of communication that one person express a certain contractual nature of a particular property right for exchange for another particular property right, so they both can have what they call equal benefit. Most of us do not understand the contracts that we're looking at. Most of them are bilateral. Some of them are self-interest contracts where we're not getting no interest. We are doing things in a voluntary capacity where we cannot have any say. We and there's nothing wrong with volunteering and giving up everything. You That's what they call donations. I have a right to donate everything. So most of us don't understand the contract in itself. So we make these hazardous choices, and it becomes detrimental to what we're trying to do. We don't understand. We don't really understand the Constitution and all the laws associated with the state and federal. So we make very, very hazardous and very uh, poor choices and very bad mistakes and executing these contracts.
Okay, so listen, one thing, y'all, we know like everything that we do is contracting, right? So you know, people don't understand, driver's license and all the contracts that they got. I think as Moors, uh, we are not contracting to our benefit. So we are not creating contracts among ourselves, one, but we're not creating contracts that when we interact with um, companies, corporations, when we're causing this minimal contact through contracts, that we're not contracting in our best interest. And usually these contracts are one sided. So, like when we do a contract, it tends to be in favor of, i.e., your job. When you get employment, they give you an application. It's a contract. It's standard. We all sign the same one. We all sign the same, driver's license forms. We all sign off on the same standardized contracts. And another thing that King used to tell me about is the fact that these contracts are what, like copywritten or something?
Yeah,
Like when you use it, what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I'm gonna get into something so deep. And I'm just gonna discuss this, right. Even down to the fonts that you use on your paper. The fonts are owned by particular companies. A
So
font.
you saying like you saying when we use a font on a word, like when
Yeah.
we on
Yeah.
typing.
Yeah. Think about
So
it. Who created the font? Somebody owns that font. Somebody has property rights to that particular font. That how that style of font is owned by a particular corporation. They have rights to that.
well,
You
damn. I mean, so the contracts that we write, if you based on what you say, the contracts that we create on Word are somewhat compromised because okay, okay, you say that. So what? We got a hand. We should handwrite them. Should we handwrite these contracts?
you can you can ain't that
I mean,
how
you
you
can.
can
I get that,
so
but
so
I'm
let
saying,
me
is that what we have to do? I mean,
no,
what are the alternative if everything's owned
okay.
by somebody?
So one of the things you either going to have to do is handwrite your contracts. That is show that they are authenticated and you can identify your own handwriting, right? So that would be a form of authentication, showing that you wrote out the contract by hand in your handwriting that can't be denied by anyone, right? You can say, "This is my handwriting. I wrote it out. They agreed to the contract, and you wrote it out word by word."
So okay, you think? I mean, you
That's
really
one.
think that like
That's
are
one.
you? I mean, like are there some patents that are not open? Like they're not really owned by anybody. They're open for anybody to use.
There are open patents, but you got to understand patent law. The doctrine. What is it called? The it's called the doctrine of patent, or what is it that I'm trying to remember? But it's under patent law. And if you look up patent law, look up patent doctrine, and look at property law. Look up the duty of fidelity as it relates to the law of allegiance. There are so many jurisdictional issues that people are not discussing that is compromising your inability to get relief from the jurisdiction.
Well, you got to give me one. You can't tell me. You got to tell me like all these jurisdictions. Like what is one jurisdiction that you feel like Moors failed to recognize or haven't what
Okay,
Moors haven't tapped into? What
it's called
jurisdiction? Tell me.
the property, property law. The law follow the property.
Okay,
The
let's bust that.
the law follow the property.
You say the law of what?
That said property law, and the law follow the property. So you don't own anything because you didn't create nothing. So guess how you determine ownership through what they call instrumentality. What's a form of an instrumentality? A patent. Somebody said, "I patent this." You just have the right of use. You need to understand the right of use as it relates to property law. You just have the right of use. 9/10 of the law is possession. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You in possession of property that has a patent to it that's been granted to the United States, in which the United States got control over, and you in possession of that property. That's why they can confiscate your car, take your home, claim eminent domain, because you don't know the law associated with the property rights with the thing that you got possession of.
Okay, I mean, but now check it out. We know this. We Moors. We understand all that, bro. Right? We
No,
understand that, Mo. But
I don't think a lot of
I
Moors
mean,
do.
because they know. Okay, a Moor will take his car and take it out. He will unregister his car, and then he'll put it in a trust. So what's wrong with him doing that?
Because he didn't go through the laws of nations as it relates to customs.
Hold on,
He,
say that again.
he don't understand as it relates to property rights, as it relates to the laws of nations, as it relates to customs. You
Well,
have to go
wait,
through
come on,
customs.
man. I mean, I got you on that, but I mean, as it relates, I'm saying, what if putting it in a trust is not enough? I
That's
mean,
not
what is
enough.
he doing wrong? Like what? I mean, like
Okay,
what is
so
he supposed to do here?
this is what I'm saying to you. It's a patent associated to that property. Okay, if I got a patent on something, right? If I invent something, right? And I register it with the United States. United States said, okay, we got your patent, we registering it, we understand the copyrights and all of that. We're gonna protect your property. Now, just because you put it in the trust, do it remove my patent? Just because you call it yours now? You say, well, I put it in trust. What do that mean? You put it in trust.
Okay, he put the trust. Can they touch that in the trust? Even though you
Yeah,
saying in the
yeah. So
patent,
because they can show the manufacturer certificate of origin. They got first in line, first in time. They the first lien holders. They can prove that their property belonged to them and that you are a secondary person, right? And your rights are second to theirs. So they got the superior right and claim. So this is how they can pierce the veil of your trust because you're putting property that in the trust that don't belong to you because you didn't create the property.
mm, okay, okay,
And then secondly, you didn't go through the U.S. So like, okay, China, if you try to buy a car from the United States and send it to China, what do the car has to go through? It has to go through customs.
it also gets taxed.
Yeah,
There's some kind of import export taxes going on, right?
right.
Do
It
you
gets
do
taxed.
more? Do we pay import export tax?
Do we pay import?
Do
You
we supposed
pay,
to pay?
of course, you pay import. You buy stuff all the time from that was made from one state to another state, and they charge you taxes on that property.
Yeah, but Moors don't pay taxes. Like they'll go around and they'll show their card. I mean, you got the what the what's the one number, the A
The AAA, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Under the what is it? The
Y'all know
I
what I'm talking about. Whoever out there help me out though. It's I can't think off the top of my head, but I
on
know
the
that
yeah,
I mean,
Destiny.
so I mean, even with that, or even
What is it? The Destiny. The
you
and
talking
the
about clock of destiny wars, right? I mean, we got different type of wars out here, Um, but yeah, the clock of destiny wars, they have. I think they're the ones that created that. So,
that
but
is
I'm just saying, like wars understand the fact of not paying tax, right? So I'm just trying to say, like, when we talk about what Moors ain't doing, or not even like like you're saying Moors is not moving forward like they should,
I
and
just
it's because they don't understand this and that. But I'm saying like when you go in there, what do you got to do? Like I mean, like talk, like get direct on like what is it that you must do? Like if you're going to court, man, and I mean and you're a Moor, and you're saying that they haven't secured their property correctly.
well
So,
the first thing you got to understand within this jurisdiction, you don't own nothing. You never pay for anything. You using debt currency. You can't pay with it. You can't pay a debt with a debt. So that's the first thing you got to understand the jurisdiction so you can resolve the jurisdictional issues. There's
So what jurisdiction is that? So I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'm going with the questions, bro. What jurisdiction is that when you don't own it? I mean, like, what
insurance.
does that mean? Like,
That's what I'm talking about. The property law. You got to understand property law. So
so I'm
the
saying in
United States, so
how it relates to property law.
let me
You go in there, you don't own it. So how do how do you get in there outside that jurisdiction or into another jurisdiction, or how do you
the
claim
prop
this property?
the property has to go. Okay, so let's say you buy a car, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the car is automatically by default registered to the United States. Just because you put it in trust, you have to go. You can go and register the car with the BMV, but that don't take the car out of the United States jurisdiction until it goes through U.S. Customs. You got to go to
Okay.
U.S.
I'm saying, how do you do that?
You
Like,
got
how
to
if you
form.
how do do it?
They got a form. You go there and you let them know you want to take the car through U.S. Customs. And you fill it out and you do all of that. And now you bring the car out of the United States jurisdiction into your jurisdiction as it relates to the contract. Now you sever the contract between that particular car, that registration with the United States, and now you brought it into another jurisdiction.
Hold up. You saying that they need to take that car to customs
Yeah,
and they have paperwork at customs.
yeah. That's what you do. If I bought a car, say if I bought a car here and I want to send it to China or Africa or any other part of the world, you would go to U.S. Customs, fill out the form, right, and then the car will be shipped on a put into a container and shipped. They would no longer have jurisdiction over that car. Now you take that car, how whatever y'all do, whatever they do, the laws associated in that country, and you would do the things necessary to register the car within that particular jurisdiction. Now the United States will take that serial number, remove that car, and show that that car is from a different jurisdiction. Do that make sense?
Y'all tell me in the building, does that make sense to y'all? I think it makes. I understand what you're saying, man. I mean, so let's say this: if you take it to U.S. Customs and then you telling U.S. Customs to send it to another country. Let's just say that country is like a Moorish temple, right? I mean, would that count, or is that like what is that kind of the where we
Yeah,
going with this?
yeah.
So when
Say
we talk about when we don't have see now this makes now we getting into understanding those general principles, saying that we don't have the institutions that we need. So that is an explanation of what institution that is needed in order to bring certain property out of one jurisdiction into another. Am I, right?
exactly.
All right. I mean, that's what I'm saying, brother. We see, we clicking, we clicking. So, um, what? So when we talk about, um, let's say the legal system. So we're talking about the legal system. We're talking about property rights. So in the legal system, let's say it's not about a car. Um, let's say it was a so called criminal act. Like say they were caught stealing. We talked about this other day. Like say they caught with some theft or fraud. Like say a Moor go into court, he stole something, or yeah, let's do something like that. Like if a Moor is in there stealing, like I mean, is there a law where like okay, man, he was stealing, he was a Moor. It doesn't matter if he's a Moor or not. He was stealing. he gotta pay for that, or is it is it more to that? Is it more to it when we're talking about some kind of criminal some kind of criminal court issue?
Um, the first element is stop. Stop. Wait a minute, Mama. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a
Y'all
minute.
like y'all like and subscribe. If y'all coming in new, like and subscribe. Hey y'all, and y'all got any questions, anything,
Stop.
feel free to comment. So okay.
So,
We did have somebody in the before we go in. So somebody did ask, can Mexicans do this?
of course,
So basically any nationality can do this.
of course. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think we have the fundamentals. I don't think we really understand the institution. I don't think we really understand
Well,
what
help us to understand, brother. That's what I'm saying. That's what you here for, Mo.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm giving some insight on some of the things,
Right. I
some of
mean,
the
we like this is my thing. We if we don't understand, it's not. You gotta just bring it to us. Like it's not. You gotta. It's more than just we don't understand.
all
If you
right.
understand, it's like okay, that's we get it. We get it. The Moors have certain abilities, certain understanding. Moors have certain understanding over law, nationality,
Come here.
religion. They have certain understanding about that. But what you're saying to us is that there's more to understand about these things than what we are getting from as more. And that's why I'm saying I need you to bring that out about what is it that they don't understand, and particularly to these things. Like if they don't understand property rights, then what do they need to look at? What do we need to look at to get that understanding?
We have to look at. We
Like
have to
in
look
like a
at.
book, what books,
First of
code, like
all,
that kind of stuff.
okay. First of all, they got you can look at property law. You can just Google it and look at US property law. And you can look up how property is governed in the United States. So you have to look up what they call American juris secundum. You have to look at corporate juris secundum to really understand what's going on, because we're dealing with instruments. We're dealing with paperwork. We have to understand what we doing what we're doing, because you have to understand the law as it relates to those categories of law dealing with particular property and the rights associated. Everything is considered property. If you look at everything as property, then you will start saying, okay, you can start saying, okay, if I didn't create this property, then who owns this property? If you look at everything in society as property, from your children to even yourself, you got to look at everything and then make the determination. So one of the things that we're looking at, we're not looking at, we 9/10 of the law is possession. So we in possession of the birth certificate, social security number, and all of these different things. All these
Hey, now you got to break that down, though. You got to break that down. 9/10 of the law is possession.
and the other 1/10 is trust. Yep.
Hold on. You say it's possession, and the one part is trust.
1/10 is trust.
Okay, so what is what does that mean?
The laws of possession. They have it. You can look that up. Look up laws of possession. U.S. laws of possession. As it relates to property rights. So, okay, what they're saying is, look, you in possession of these things, and the only how did you get possession of a driver's license? You filled out a contract. That's the only way you came in possession of the driver's license. How did you come in possession of the birth certificate? You filled out a contract, right?
Right.
I'm,
So
I'm
you
from,
okay? So contract. We're
right?
back to contract. Contract and contract and its relationship to property.
Exactly.
I mean, what do you? So I mean, like, what do you? What's your understanding of that? Like how?
Okay. Certain things, okay, check this. You go get an apartment, right? You fill out a lease agreement to have access to that property. You filled out a contract. The contract makes the law. Don't they give you possession of the lease agreement? You in possession of it. And you in
You're
possession
saying contract
of the apartment.
contract makes law. Contract makes law.
Put them up. Yeah.
Contract makes law. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm just asking. You saying contract makes law. So when you do a contract, that contract, whatever you've put in that contract, that becomes the law, right?
Of course. Yes, that's the law.
Okay.
So the contract, everything that you before you can't got a social security card. What did you have to do? You filled out
Everything
a
right. Contract.
you said you filled out a contract. So now they can determine that you got in possession of that property through a particular process, and now they can determine or presume jurisdiction based upon you having possession of that property. They looking at it, they can tell, okay, you got a social security number. They understood the they understand how law operates. Under the construction of law, you are in possession of something that they constructed through intellectual property rights that you now got possession of, and whatever they say the law is in that contract, and in the contract is started off with an application that's attached to a statute. And whatever that law says governs their properties.
Uh, I totally get what you're saying though. So like basically like the social security number, that's property, right?
Right.
And then you saying like the birth certificate is property.
It's property.
Uh, and you saying property being 9/10. So
Possession of that property is 9/10 of the law.
yeah, 9/10 of the law is possession.
Exactly.
So who's in possession of it? 9/10 of it. It's you're saying that we are 9/10 possession of it, or we're saying that the state is 9/10 possession of it.
So it works like this, right? You have a right to hold the property, but the state is really in possession of it. You are nothing but the custodian of it. The state truly had possession, and they passed that. They what they did was pass the liability down to you. Just like when you go get a car, they say, where's your license and registration? You don't technically own the car, you own the registration. They're selling us paperwork.
The pay. So the registration is the property.
Yeah, it's intellectual. So when we talk about legal lease, right? What is legal lease as it relates to law? It's intellectual property. It's copyright material. You calling these documents, they say on there, these are legal documents. You just establish jurisdiction by using the word saying that this is a legal document. And only people who can practice law is lawyers. So you just put yourself in a jurisdiction where they can now interpret it because you called it a legal document. And anything you say can and will be held against you in the court of law. So they educated you. What did that mean? They trained you, programmed you to think this way so that they can always have access to jurisdiction because they trained you to speak in this manner so that they can use your own words against you. Because you don't
Mm,
know how to call it anything different. Because you wasn't taught your true history and you don't know the difference between law and legal.
very true. Very true. Man, that's bro. That's hey, that's heavy, y'all. I mean, to me, that's heavy. Me and brother talk all the time, but sometimes I'm making connections even more myself, listening to him and listening to what he's saying. And and I hear this all the time. So uh, I think I have, I really think I have a better understanding of 9/10 possession myself, and the fact that the property rights are not being applied properly. Um, I do feel like Moors are not. When you say it like that, I don't feel like Moors understand property law. I don't.
Most, most people don't even talk about. There is so many jurisdictional issues and it's too much to cover. And what I'm saying, they they're not people are not astute enough because they only tend to look at nationality only. And nationality relates to what? In the Constitution, the laws of nations, as it relates to their customs, traditions, and this can go back to the First Amendment. I don't think we know how to plug and play all of this information to establish rights as it relates to plugging it into the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, as all of these things are nothing but contracts.
I was just about. That's where I was about to go. I was about to say something about like with the Moors. We Moors, we have a title of peace and friendship, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. This is one of the things that a major distinction between so-called black, Negro, and colored and Moors. It's that they have they have a right to the treaty, but when you say about property rights, now like when the property rights apply to the treaty, how does that how do you how do you put that together with the property rights in the treaty? Because a treaty is property, right?
Right?
Okay, so how do we apply it in that way? Like how do we tie it to property rights as we've been tying it to the other parts?
Okay, as it relates to property rights, the first idea you got to understand the treaty and how this works. It's an amity and friendship treaty as it relates to peace and friendship. So what is that? They gave us the right to do commerce. They said, okay, we're gonna do we both have what they call reciprocity. So United States, we granted the United States reciprocity, and the United States said we're going to recognize you have the right to contract and being able to do your commerce dealing, and we're not going to bother you. We're not going to interfere with that. So what happened is We stopped being industrial. We don't manufacture anything. If you look at if you look at really original jurisdiction as it relates to case law, you're gonna always see that it's dealing with manufacturing things. It's dealing with manufacturers. So we're not being industrial. So we don't make the cars, we don't build the homes, we don't make our own clothes, we don't make our own shoes. We don't make no cell phones. We don't make no cell phone towers. We don't make no satellites. We don't make no tires that go on our car. We don't make nothing.
Okay. So I got a brother here. The brother, brother Shakat Azam. I hope I said that right. I'm not trying to mess your name up. But he says that the treaty came from Sharia. What do you What do you think about that?
Those, yes, it did come from Sharia because the Moors who wrote that particular treaty were Muslim.
Okay. So what I think he's thinking is instead of coming from, I guess, the property side, he's looking at he's saying we need Islam and Sharia law. If I'm taking it correctly, I'm not sure, if that's exactly, but I think that's what he's trying to say.
So,
Yes, sir. Yes,
so,
sir.
so you got to look at the Constitution in itself, the constitutionality of things, because there it was all types of Moors. Moors were Jews. There were all types of Moors in the world. There were there were all types of Moors. So you have to look at the particular Moors in the particular region as it relates to them treaties, because they're going to put their laws and customs based upon their belief system, based upon their traditions into a treaty to really protect and safeguard their rights.
Okay. Um, I think that answered the question. I don't know if the brother got any other questions. I'm sure he would respond or say something in regard to that. But he did bring up something to me about. I mean, like, so if we was talking about Sharia law and it's really a religious thing. Um, what because back then, I mean, we talking about 1780s. Um, I'm trying to think what dynasty was that? What dynasty was in place at that time? I mean, um, like you said, I mean, definitely would be Sharia. I mean, it's like even now, like if you pull up Sharia, like when you start using religion or Sharia law, how is that play into? I mean, like because you got religion, you got the First Amendment rights that play into that. So, like to me, let me ask you. Okay, thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. He said the the Ottoman. Well, the Ottomans definitely were in power. So, like looking at religion in regards to property rights.
Okay.
That's an interesting concept. So, I mean, like, so give me what you think about that, because the Moorish Science Temple is a religious institution, and then you got Orthodox Islam that come in with Sharia law. So this,
I'm gonna break this down. A lot of people. That's why I say it's a lot of Moors that don't understand law as it relates. Rights or property. A right is property. So let's talk about your religion. Your beliefs are a part of you. You can't separate your beliefs from you. That is your right. So if your right of belief is your property, personal property is called under commercial law, personal property. then that's your property. And if you don't know how to protect or safeguard your right, you can waive it. The First
How you
Amendment,
gonna waive it?
that, huh?
How you gonna waive it? We talking about? Yeah, go ahead. How you gonna?
You
Go ahead.
waive
Go ahead.
you waive it through contract. You don't
Okay.
you don't identify that your Sharia law or whatever your treaty rights or whatever religious law or your Moorish law or whatever you want to call it to protect, right, and be safeguarded, then is waived when you don't negotiate that in the contract.
I got you. I got you. I see the master elder was in the building. He said he gotta watch the rest of it this afternoon. He got to crash. Yeah, I know it, brother. I know you got to get in the morning, but much love to you, elder. Uh, okay, okay. So I'm going back to the other question, brother. He said you need reference. You have to go to Islamic fig, which means jurisprudence. I'm not. Now I don't know. Now he got me on that one. I'm not sure. He might elaborate on that a little bit more for me. I'm not totally understanding that question. I don't know if you can see that. If you can see,
See the question. So okay, you have to, like, for example, if you're going to practice the Quran as it relates to the Quran, right?
yeah,
Everything that one of the things when you get your Bible, you got to or a book that have definitions, right? You have to be able to determine or decipher the book to interpret the book. So you have to understand the language associated. That's why we talk about, I can go into talking about translation and transliteration as it relates to contracts. So a lot of us don't even protect it or our religious rights and say our contract has been transliterated or translated into English, but only a particular Iman can interpret the contract based upon this jurisdiction. That's why under Moorish treaty, only council generals they can make decisions as it relates to settling disputes. You see what I'm saying? So let's say you got you a particular language, right, Bandele? Let's say you got a particular language, and I want to do a contract with you, right? And let's
yeah,
say you let's say you speak and write in Swahili because we talked about this before. But
right,
that document has to be transliterated from Swahili into English. So now you can say, well, I want to do business with you, but you like, okay, I'm gonna translate it into English, but the interpretation of this document has to also be interpreted in Swahili as well as English to get a true what understanding of the contract and all the terms related to both parties based upon their what customs, traditions, right, and culture. These are elements that probably need to be in the contract so that the person can, so whoever reading it understands that it's not just they have to interpret it in English, they also have to interpret it in Swahili to get a true understanding of that. And then you might specify in the contract, right, that
yeah,
the person that's going, a particular person or institution have a right to interpret the contract in English in accordance to Swahili to better get a understanding of what a particular party meant to ensure the integrity of the contract. Do that make
Right.
sense?
Well, I mean, like I kind of understand what you're saying. I got a brother. He's like, I don't think he quite understands what you're saying.
I'm
Um,
talking about what's this guy talking about? It has to be valid and reliable. I don't know
so
what it.
like, I mean, I think we talking on two different things. You got like when he's talking about Jewish prudence, I think he's talking about from an Islamic standpoint. Um,
It doesn't matter
you,
what standpoint. You got to understand the construction of law. Who constructed the law?
law from, I guess what law from what side? Like I mean, like we got two. Like I think we're talking on two different ends. Like what is Islamic jurisprudence in a sense, right? And how they practice law is not like what the United States practices as law.
And that's based upon what? Customs.
Yeah, customs. Yeah,
That's based
definitely.
upon customs. So it doesn't. So see, this is what I'm saying about the conflict of understanding. So if I'm Islamic, right, and I'm doing things under Islamic law, and I want to do things related to you, right? Because America practice what? Corporate juris secundum, right? And then you got the laws. So now you got a corporation. You trying to do business with a corporation. So y'all got to determine who has the superior right. Who law is going to be superior? Who
Right?
law is
Because
going
now
to
let's
be
cause
superior?
like right, I get what you're saying, right? So like let's say the brother talking about you got Islamic law. You got let's say you in America. You're in America living. Like let's say this brother, I don't know where this brother's from or where he's at, but let's just say he's somewhere in the United States. Now, how are you going to apply Islamic law in the United States? You know, like how are they going to come together? And
And
understand, and I look, he says that protects us now, right? So what we're saying is because it's religious law, customary religious law in the form of Islamic, that under the Constitution has to protect that Islamic law,
but
right?
you have to understand this patent law. See, this is what people. This is the
No,
problem.
no, no, no. Back up. What you say is what?
You have to understand patent law. So let me explain this, right? So we want to say, oh, I'm going to use my Islamic law. Okay. Let's say Toyota, right? Let's say Toyota. We buy a car, right? Right? And now
Okay.
I'm Muslim, right?
Yeah.
Muslim. Now, Toyota got a particular set of laws and patents associated with their property. Just because I'm Muslim, do that give me the right to go replicate a to make another Toyota? Now that I'm in possession of that Toyota, you got to understand we can't. I can't. That's just like I can't put my laws on your house. I can't tell you how to run in your house. I live in another house. The only law that governs my house is my law, right? I can't
Right.
come to your house and then tell you that my law extends to your house. You're going to look at me like I'm crazy.
Well,
So, what,
what I'm saying is, if you got okay, like if you got a temple, a mosque in,
see, that's what I'm talking
uh,
about.
huh,
I'm reading what he said. He said, We cannot be tried under the rules because they have no capacity. This is what I'm talking about. This is why we don't. This is why I'm saying we don't understand corporate juris secundum. We don't understand what's going on. The law. I keep trying to tell people the law follows the property. The law follows the damn property. We don't understand the contracts that we signing. So what? This is where's the conflict, right? Because
I
we try
got you.
we try to tell them that's just like I got your son, right? And I'm gonna be like, look, man, now your son is gonna do what I tell him to do in my house and in your house. You're gonna be looking at me like I'm crazy.
All right.
It's
So what? Okay, this is I kind of got this. Let's say, like, see, okay, this is what I think. This is what a brother. Okay, the brother trying to say we need Islam. Look, man. It really don't matter what your religion is. You could be Islamic, Christian, whatever it is that you doing as far as a religion. But what about the contracts that you sign as a Muslim? If if you're Islamic, you practice Islamic law, but you living in the United States, and you sign a contract called a Social Security number, that's going to have a minimal contact with you and your religion, regardless of Sharia law or not. If you got a Social Security card, you have a certain property in your possession that you got to deal with. I don't give a damn what religion you are. I don't care about no Sharia or none of that. It does not matter.
and this is
If
why
you have a contract out, if you're not contracting, I mean, if you are contracting regardless of your religious affiliation with the United States in any form or fashion, you have to deal with that. It don't matter. Like this is what I'm saying. Like this is what I don't be liking about these cats on the internet. Man. They like to argue, right? And not and but we trying to get understanding of this. Like there's more than what you saying that goes into this. And I understand, like I think King might have been going around it a little bit and trying to get it done. But what you're saying is you give you that authority to say it's okay to be anything. I'm saying that if you are a Muslim who takes on a contract in the United States in the form of anything like EIN is anything, a social security number, driver's license, any of these things, you get certain you might get certain religious rights, but you only giving them what they give you at that point because you sign a contract with them. You do have the right to contract away some of your stuff away. You do have a right to contract away certain fundamental rights that you might have had before that contract. Sometimes we sign away our rights because we hungry. You might need food stamp card, bro. So you a Muslim with a food stamp card, and you telling me that you can't, you gotta, that you don't have to abide by what the food stamp laws or regulations are in any form of capacity because it conflicts with Sharia law or something. I think that I think that's where I think that's where the problem lies right there. Is that when we start to have minimal contact. Now, if you are Islam and you got your temple and you really don't use anything from the government, then I can understand exactly what you're saying.
we can talk about the Amish as they don't use a lot of different. They still use horse and buggy on certain things. Some of them drive cars, but if you look how they move and how they construct everything,
And he's
it's
saying reserve your right at all times. So you're saying you're reserving your right under the contract, and that makes you not have to deal with any part of the contract, but you still getting benefits. So how is it that you can get the benefits from somebody but not have to abide by it? So like that's like me saying, like you a Muslim, if you a Muslim brother, and I tell you that if you want this car and we sign a contract that you got to do A, B, and C, and you sign it. I could be like, hey, you got to eat pork once a month if you want this car. And you sign off on it like a goofy something, and you telling me that that's not a contract? You understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter if you got the treaty right. That's what they done. That's the problem. We had treaty rights. We got religious rights, but somehow we contracted out because they like, hey, you need this, don't you? You need this social security number because your broke ass don't have enough money for insurance. So you got to get Obamacare. So now you under Obamacare, which is a contract, and you got a social security number, which is a contract.
This is what I'm talking about, Chief. It's so many jurisdictional issues that they don't understand, and they go in. Okay, for example, you go to the IRS and you go apply for an EIN number. Who generated and gave you the number? Who created the number? And that's what it's so many. I can pull out doctrines. The Supreme Court gonna bust your head with because when you go get an EIN number, they gonna look at the substance over form doctrine.
You said the substance over form doctrine.
Yeah, the substance over form doctrine. Don't nobody even look at these doctrines. It's
You said
another doctrine.
substance over form.
Yeah, substance over form doctrine.
I ain't never heard that one.
Man, there's so many doctrines.
And
It's
that's the problem. They got so many stupid stuff out here. And see, family, we here to learn, right? So we all like it's not like we're not here to attack anybody, and we hope you ain't trying to attack us. Because that's not the goal here. It's for us to attack each other over what we know.
see, this is
It's really it's the guy. The thing is, we all here to learn and to teach. So if you don't agree with something, that's fine. It's just like I don't have to agree with what you're saying, but there may be parts to that may be something to everything. Okay, so I mean, like it's not like we ain't been doing this for a long time, like in court, and seeing kind of like the trials and tribulations, and that's kind of why we here talking about what the Moors have been lacking because a lot of the Moors haven't been able to take this into court effectively. Okay. Um, like I put up on the board personal property substance over form doctrine. Is that what you said?
I ain't say personal property. It's dealing with the IRS. If you go to the IRS website, you can look up substance over form doctrine as it relates to property rights. And it's personal property. You can leave that up there.
No, that's cool. I mean, I'm trying to get it. I was trying to get it right, and I think
It's the Supreme Court doctrine, substance over form. That the that's what they're going to use. And then they got this one that I want to remember it. I keep forgetting this doctrine, but I know it. It's dealing with it's the it's dealing with the creation of property, but I can't remember it right now. And I like they just got so many doctrines, and people don't understand these doctrines are the principle that govern rights as it relates to
right,
jurisdiction, as it
right,
relates to property. So what I'm trying to tell people is I can't put my law on your property. If it's your property, I don't get to put my laws on your stuff. It's not my property. And that's the problem. They want to put their laws on other people's property.
I
Because
got you. I got what you said. Like you said, for example, Social Security is not. It's the property of Social Security.
look, read the back of it. What it
I,
was saying.
I mean, you're right. You're right. That's what I'm saying. The Social Security Department owns that. They have the rights. They have the rights to that number. Social Security has the rights. Social Security has the rights to that number. So
Right.
you can't take. So you saying you can't take like your religious belief and put it on there. And I'm gonna keep it real. I've seen the court cases because like one of the things they say is like you have to have a social security number if you're trying to get these programs because we require them by the Supreme Court said it's required. You can't get around that. You really can't. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can get around having a social security number. You don't have to have a social security number to do certain things. But if it's certain programs that they provide for you, you have to use their institutions, which is their property, to facilitate it. And once you get into their property, once you start using their property, they start to dictate how it's to be used because they really own that property. So that's what I think. I think that's what my brother King Abe is really trying to say is that, you know, what you think is your property really is not your property. It's really either the state's or it's got a patent on it, and you are trying to impose your rights that you think because you think this is your property, but you don't really own it. They just giving you the ability to possess it or the ability to use that property for benefits. Like the Social Security is their property that they give you to use for certain benefits that you get from that. So then when you get to start doing this and that, they may accommodate you, they may not accommodate you, but it's really um, at their
Discrepancy.
right. It's just like if you're an Islamic person. I've been times where I go into a bar and they tell you that you can't wear your garments in there, and you like that's a religious wrong. Like you, it's wrong for you. This is my religion, but this is a personal bar,
Establishment.
and they won't allow none of it in there,
So
and they
this
got the right to do that.
right. Your rights don't supersede their rights because it's their establishment. They are the owners of the establishment. So you don't get to say and dictate to them about their stuff. We don't own none of this stuff. This is why I keep trying to see a lot of us is that's why I say we're having issues because we don't understand the institution that we're living in. We don't understand these things. So these principles of law go over our head and we already in the courtroom out of order because we don't understand none of this. So we say, nah, we got a treaty, and they looking like, what your treaty got to do with this driver's license? You say, well, I have a right to travel. I'm traveling, but you're holding and possessing a license that you signed and agreed to follow. You didn't put on there without recourse when you signed the document. You
Hey, now
did
brother did say something like that. Brother did make mention of that because he said, signing it with a reservation of rights or something of that nature. So, would you agree that when you are filling out their contracts, that you have to put without recourse or reservation of all rights or something of that nature, and that's going to get you out of that contract in that way?
well, you got to have a copy of the contract, right? That's another thing. So, so for example, right? This is what I learned, right? You two parties must authenticate something in order for it to be authenticated. So, to authenticate a record, I must approve it, and you must approve it to say that's the original document. I signed. Yeah, that's what I signed. Both parties got to agree that's the true original instrument that was signed. So none of us come into question with any of these contracts to look and say, okay, could we get a copy of these documents? Once you don't bring a notary with you to say, okay, like let's say let's say you sign a mortgage and you write without recourse on it, right? You don't you don't get a certified copy and bring a notary with you and say, well, I brought a notary with me to authenticate this, right? This document. So she authenticated, she signed it or attached an instrument to it, and then they put it under seal. And what I mean by under seal is not that they just put their seal on it, that they seal it in a envelope. You got a seal envelope, she got a seal envelope, right? Where it's now taped or glued, however you got it, where if it's tampered with, you can show where the tampering has been. Or I can show you another thing that you want to do, right? You can take contracts that you sign, go down to probate court, file those contracts with your damn will. This is how deep King Bay can go. Now the probate court has a copy of the contract under seal. Now you can go request. You can have the a probate officer bring them contracts into play, open that stuff in court, and say, "Here's what I signed. Do this align with the BMV, the mortgage company, or whatever? Sign." Nobody is doing that. People are not critically thinking on these levels. When we talking about record keeping, because they're nothing but courts of record. Brothers are trying to, I have litigated over 100 cases. You know me, you have litigated all over the country. We have people calling us from everywhere at one point. I'm trying to tell brothers, but brothers have this idea, and this is why they get in trouble. This is what you remember the rise of the Moors, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had the guns. Why did they get in trouble for the guns? Oh, well, they have a First Amendment right. Them guns are patent. Read the patent law. Read the patent law doctrine. Go look it up. It's
I hear you.
registered patent. Now, that's somebody's property. United States got control over it as trustee. So guess what the law they passed the law on how you can deal with the gun.
Hey, the other thing too is, the money.
The money. Which
Now, like we say, the money. Who own the money? The money is property,
the money is
right?
intellectual property.
And who own the money?
Mm. You
Do
don't.
you do we own the money?
No.
So when we use their money, that puts us back in minimum contact. Minimal contact.
This is what I keep talking about. Brothers and sisters don't know minimum contact. They don't understand this. So this is why, for example, gold and silver, right? They didn't create gold and silver. God did. It was already here. So they can't put a patent on gold and silver. They didn't create. You only can put a patent and license things that you created. Like you wrote books, right? Ain't they
Right.
ain't they copyright and ain't they copywritten?
Right.
Now,
Right. It's
if I'm a Muslim, hold on before you make that point. Would my Muslim law would that supersede your copyright patent law over your book? I'm saying I'm got Bandele book. I'm gonna go print out some of these copies. I'm gonna go make copies of this book and give them to everybody because my Muslim law supersedes his law over his books.
It's a good point. That's a good point. It wouldn't. It probably it couldn't supersede it. Right. It doesn't matter what you believe in. You can't take somebody. But does that go against their own tenets? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like it got to go against Islamic tenets to steal. So or any religion for that matter. But I do. But I know what you're saying though, and the fact that one rule may not over one jurisdiction may not overrule or supersede another jurisdiction. It's gonna have to be an argument and have to be dealt with in court. What jurisdiction has superior over the other? So I do understand that, but the brother make a point. The brother make a point about religion too, because we don't use religion to the extent that's needed, and that's another thing that we haven't talked about with the Moors or whatnot. The Moors don't use religion in the capacity that they don't use it in the fullest capacity that they could, you know, because religion does play a very protective part to your society. It's very, the United States recognizes religious rights, and um, there are a lot of exemptions that can be used under religion. So, that's like I say, and being that the Moorish Americans, the temple is a religious facility. It's not being with the combination of
What?
not using contracts and not using their religious rights to the fullest capacity. To me, is one of the issues that I see with Moors. You know,
And this is the big problem. This is why I talk about jurisdictional hurdles. There are so many things as it relates to law. More say, man, it's all about nationality. And I say, yeah, that's the first step. But there are several hurdles that you must understand to defeat the jurisdiction. It's called a collateral attack. It's a collateral attack. Like most people don't understand what's going on. They don't read their state constitution. They don't understand. They use words. And they don't understand the words that they're using to stimulate jurisdiction.
right, right. So I pulled this up too because we didn't get into this, but you kind of touched on it because we talking about going to court, putting things in the probate court, and so now you're in a court of record. Is this got anything to do with what we're talking about here when we say you have to correct the court record? So, like, as a Moor, do you feel like that's one of the issues? They're not correcting the court record?
Well, they haven't established a record where the court will recognize it. So there has to be a way. They don't understand how to establish such right to under contract to enforce the treaty under contract. They just think, oh, I'm a Moor. I just get to do this and I get to do that. But you got to understand, the United States corporation is an instrumentality of itself, and the United States of America is not the U.S. corporation, and that they got to understand that corporation is indebted to some privateers as it relates to jurisdiction, because what kind of jurisdiction? It's a banking franchise. So the privateers say, hey, we're going to set up a banking franchise for y'all to operate. So we're going to show you how to do all of this. So what did the bankers do? They helped use lobbyists. They used the Congress to create laws to protect their rights. So now you're using their instruments, form as bank credit cards, bank cards,
Federal Reserve notes.
Federal Reserve notes, and other instrumentalities, and people don't understand what I'm talking about, and they go into the court and they lose. I was just talking to a brother. He was going to court about his house, and I was telling him what to do. I was saying, "Listen, bro, you got to safeguard your rights. What is the first thing that is required by due process of law? You must give notice."
Okay.
So what do? They don't give notice before they come into the court. I said, you got to give notice. And then the court has to make a determination of foreign law. Nobody put in a notice of determination of foreign law and request the court to make a determination of foreign law before to determine if they got jurisdiction or not. They just say I'm a Moor. What do you being a Moor has to do with this contract?
Yeah, you
Tell me
tell. Well, yeah.
how your nationality gonna get you out of this contract that you just signed.
Is that right? Notice determination of foreign law.
Yeah,
So you saying like when you go to court, um, you should be filing notice of determination of foreign law,
a
like
term
off the.
off the rip. So, for example, right, an attorney can't just make an appearance. He got to give notice of appearance. I got cases overturned when attorneys did not give notice. I objected to the attorney being there. The court act like that didn't exist, and it went into an appeal, and I got the whole stuff overturned based on failure to comply with due process requirements. You got to give notice.
So let me. Okay, man, we going in deep, man. We've been on for a minute, y'all. Please like the video. Like you said, share this video. I mean, because we trying to go in, man. We going in. Due process. Um,
That's two
talk
forms
a
of.
little bit about due process to the people, man.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the first form of due process is substantive due process. Substantive due process is what creates the law.
Okay.
Then you have what they call procedural due process.
Okay. You got substantial due process, and then you said you have. You said substantial and uh what was it?
Procedural.
Procedural, right? Procedural. I can't think, man. It's getting late. I got you. You're right. Yeah, procedural. So you saying that's the substantial due process deals with making the law?
Yes, it creates the law.
Okay, so a violation of substantial due process. An example of that would be
Um, Contract if the court tried not to recognize your rights as you wrote and negotiated it in the contract, they can't change because they can't interfere with the obligation of a contract. So if me and you had a contract, the court can't change the obligation that you made with me if we did it outside of the jurisdiction. So, for example, they always presume that they got jurisdiction because you're holding on to these instrumentalities, or they presume that you did it under their jurisdiction, and you have to spell it out in the contract. So, if I put in the contract that this contract can only be decided by, let's say, General Wilson, let's say Michael Wilson, and Michael Wilson in the contract has the right to decide and witness the contract and make a decision who is at fault and who is at blame, and that's the only way we can go to court or whatever, spell it out through the contract.
Right.
That if it goes to a court under legal jurisdiction within the state, blah blah blah. Spell. You just have to
Okay.
spell out all the terms and conditions,
So like okay, like let's say like a credit card contract.
right?
Would that be like could you use that as a form of substantive due process? Like if the
Okay, let's say, see, we got to look at, see, this is why I try to tell people you got to understand all the components of law. So let's say if this institution, right, was made, a LLC that was made in Wisconsin, right? The law of Wisconsin would govern that LLC unless that LLC then extended its jurisdiction to Ohio. But it has a way to contract and say that competent jurisdiction will be extended to Wisconsin, and that you will have to file your claim in Wisconsin to get the remedy you want as associated um, with the Wisconsin. But they have to also recognize Ohio law because they doing business in Ohio. But you must file your claim in Wisconsin,
original jurisdiction.
right?
Okay. So so what so we got substantive due process. What is procedural due process?
The procedure is just the rules that the court rules that apply, like the civil rules, the rules of evidence, the rules of superintendent, the rules of
Okay.
criminal procedure. They
Rules
got
of criminal procedure, rules of criminal civil procedure, those type of things, right? What you
to
saying?
follow those procedures to the letter.
So if somebody is if your due process if your procedural due process um, has been violated, that means like they violated like um, criminal procedure. They might have like jacked up the investigation on the crime. The crime scene is messed up, or you get in court and they don't follow the rules of evidence when they file something. Something is that what you're saying?
Yeah, let's say you do a discovery.
What's that?
Hold on one second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so y'all, like I said, family, like, subscribe. Uh, basically, like we've been going in, man. Like I mean, it's a lot of, you know, a lot of law. Really, what it is a lot. I'm talking about a lot of law that hasn't been touched by us. Like we haven't looked at it. We just dealing with a small fragment of understanding the law. So go ahead, brother. You back yet, or
Hold on one second.
okay? But that's fine. So what I'm just saying is that So tonight, basically, going through all of the different things that are not being addressed by our popular culture of Moors and sovereigns and things of that nature that's trying to like make understanding. We're going about it in a certain way without all the understanding of all the law, and so it's really hard for us to really make these things um, go through. Like it's hard for you to get them to recognize a different jurisdiction in court. It's hard for you to go in there. Like most of us go in there talking about in court. You're talking about you know, what jurisdiction is this? And these things of that nature, but haven't filed anything that is of validity in the courtroom. So, we're looking at property rights. We've looked at the fact that many things that we do, everything pretty much that we do in court is dealing with property. When we think of property, we often just think of like possessive things, like oh, my car is my property or my computer is my property. But those are just one type of property. I mean, because property comes in the different forms, and that's what we're trying to, make people understand. Property is in the form of a birth certificate. Property is in the form of social security number or EIN or different things that the government has created as benefits is their property. And the things that we possess, like computers, laptops, guns, all these type of things, those properties are under control of a patent. So whoever controls the patent is the one who owns the actual material. Everything that we have, we are just loaned it. It's like we are borrowing it to use it, and we can be liable if it's used incorrectly. But at the end of the day, we don't truly own it. And I know one thing that we didn't say, but with the fact that when we buy everything, we're using, that's another form of property. The money that we use is not our money. We didn't create that money. That money is owned by a private banking system that loans this money out with interest and allows the people to use it. But with that use comes certain rules and regulations that you have to follow. And so this has to expand our mind open up to a broader understanding of what property is. Okay. And um, to understand the Constitution, how the Constitution.
Could I help you out, brother? Too. Hold on. Well, go ahead and
Nah,
finish.
brother, I'm just brother. I'm just filling in, right? I'm waiting on you to come back. So
I kind of so so when we talk about fundamental rights, what is the first thing before you? Everything that you see on this planet is made by two people. It's either God, I mean, it's God created it, or it's man. So where do everything start? It starts in the mind. It starts as intellectual property. So you put it on paper, you put it in patent. We talking about patent law. So let's say I wanted to invent something. I put it on paper and I invent it. Now I can claim the rights. Once that I invent it, I put the invention together, I get it copyrighted, I get it sealed, and then I make it. And then I might have somebody manufacture it for me. I might make the prototype and then somebody manufacture it. That patent law, right? United States may say, okay, we gonna give you the right to do this, right? But we want to govern the law, right? So now now you might lobby because let's say the manufacturing company, they say, okay, we need the United States to consider what we made and we want to put this into legislation. So you an inventor, you got a Fortune 500 company that then took your patent. They want to help you manufacture it and give you a percentage. So what is they going to do? They're going to go to Capitol Hill. They're going to get some lobbyists and they're going to lobby the law associated with the property that you just made, and they're going to put it into legislation. Now, that law is now under that category of law is going to follow that property wherever it goes. So most people don't understand this. So they get lost with the journey of law because they don't understand all the different components of law that's applicable to the jurisdiction. So
I got
so now they start saying, "Oh, my rights is superior to your rights," and they be talking about this is our land. They ain't even dealing with land. They dealing with instruments. I keep trying to tell people it's not about the damn land. They dealing with instruments. They dealing with patents. They dealing with instruments. They dealing with contracts. They dealing with instruments. This is why you got to understand the instrumentality doctrine. You don't
I mean,
understand.
when you say instruments, like what is an instrument? Like what do you mean by instrument? Like what's an example of an instrument?
Okay, a contract is an example of an instrument.
Okay, I got you. I'm
Uh,
just trying to. I'm
a
just
patent, a patent, right? You draw, you say you make something, and you draw the instructions on how to build this, right? And then you draw the instructions. Now you register that, and now the contract associated with that patent is going to govern the rights associated with that property. So let's say if you know how to write a contract, you may say you have 100% vested interest, what they call an absolute interest in that particular property, right?
okay. Okay. Okay.
And that this is right is reserved permanent. You just argue however you write the contract. So now the company might write it, say, okay, we're gonna grant this. Now we're gonna pitch it to Congress through our lobbyists to get this bill passed associated with this contract that we just signed with this mother sucker. And now it's gonna come into legislation and turn into an act or turn into a statute. It's gonna turn into an act, then turn into a statute, in which now it's enforceable with in the federal jurisdiction.
I got you, Mo. I got you, Mo. Man, well, I know brother, we've been on here for about a couple of hours, and you know,
It's one
we
thirty
we
four.
covered we covered a lot of information. So, um, always appreciate you, man. Anybody who's looking to do some work, man, please, you guys will look into the contact. I'm gonna put our number up. I'm gonna put this number up, and if you got any legal issues that you want to discuss, or any like you got some stuff going on in court, you know, we are here to help assist you. We are not lawyers. We're not doing legal stuff, but we could assist you on jurisprudence, if you will, having an understanding of the law, helping you to write the proper, things to file in court. Okay, so uh, I'm gonna put this number up, and
So this
like
like
check out all the videos, man. We got like a lot of other videos that we've done dealing with like jurisdiction, treaties, religion, law, everything, man.
so
So
y'all need to look at this. We're here to assist you with your contractual needs. We can help you understand your rights as it relates to contracts. So everything, if you look at everything as property and look at the rights associated, all you got to do is ask yourself this question: did I create this property? If you didn't create this property, then you need to go find out the rights associated with this property. You need to start looking at how the United States is constructed to determine where your rights lie. So I'm just giving y'all some little stuff like that. This is your boy King L Bay, dropping knowledge all day.
Yes, sir. And this is brother Chief Noble Bandele Amin, and we out of here, y'all. So y'all have a good weekend. Peace and love. Tuta Nana.